At my son's wedding, I gave him an envelope with a gift. He lifted his glass and said nothing. Just looked at me with those cold eyes I didn't recognize anymore. That's when I knew something had changed. 3 hours later, Isabella cornered me near the bar, my new daughter-in-law. 26 years old, designer dress, diamonds that caught the light like little knives. "Dennis," she said, "we need to talk about your apartment." The music was loud. People were dancing. I'd had 2 drinks, maybe 3. "What about it?" "We need the keys." I stared at her. "Excuse me?" "The downtown apartment, the one you're not using. We need it." She smiled, but her eyes stayed flat. "It makes sense, doesn't it? You live in that big house alone. We need the space. That apartment is mine. Technically, it's in a trust, and Kyle is the beneficiary. My son. My only child. I'd put that apartment in trust for his future, never thinking he'd try to take it while I was still breathing. "The answer is no." Isabella's smile disappeared. "You're being selfish." "I'm being what?" Her voice got louder. People started looking. "You have that huge house. You have the lake property. Why do you need a 2-bedroom apartment downtown?" "Because it's mine." "God, you're just like Kyle said. Controlling, possessive." She held out her hand. "Give me the keys." "No." That's when she slapped me. The sound cut through the music. Conversations stopped. My face burned, but I didn't move. Just looked at her, this woman who'd been in my life for 8 months, who'd convinced my son to get married after 6. Kyle appeared, grabbed her arm. "Bella, what are you doing?" "He won't give us what's ours." "It's not ours yet, babe. Come on." They walked away together. He didn't look back, didn't apologize, didn't ask if I was okay. I stood there with my burning cheek and my empty glass, and something inside me went quiet and cold. When my daughter said I wasn't invited for Christmas, I just smiled, got in the car, and went back home. 2 days later, I looked at my phone and saw 22 missed calls. All from Kyle. I didn't call back. The apartment situation had escalated. Isabella's father, Richard Torres, had sent his lawyer. They wanted to discuss my estate planning. They'd also started a whisper campaign. Apparently, I was a difficult old man who didn't understand modern family dynamics. I was 58 years old, hardly ancient. The house felt bigger every day. My wife Sarah had died 4 years ago, cancer, and Kyle had barely visited during those final months. Too busy with his startup, he said. Too busy building his future. I'd understood, or tried to. Now I sat in my home office, looking at spreadsheets. Numbers don't lie. Numbers are honest. Over 23 years, I'd given Kyle $600,000, maybe more. College tuition, graduate school, the seed money for his first business, the loan for his second, the investment in his third. The third one had actually worked. Software development, something with cloud infrastructure I didn't fully understand. Kyle had paid me back 40% of what I'd invested. Called it even. Said the rest was sweat equity I'd contributed. My sweat. His equity. The phone rang. Kyle again. I picked up. "Dad, finally. Jesus, I've been trying to reach you for 2 days. I've been busy. Look, about the wedding. Bella feels terrible. She was stressed. The whole day was overwhelming, and she had too much champagne. She wants to apologize." "Okay." Silence. "That's it? Just okay?" "What do you want me to say, Kyle?" "I don't know, something more than okay?" "She feels bad. We both do. It got out of hand." I waited. "The thing is, Dad, we really do need more space. The apartment makes sense. You're not using it, and we're cramped in our place. Bella's pregnant." The words hit me like cold water. "Pregnant?" "Yeah. We found out last week. We were going to tell everyone at Christmas, but anyway, we need room for a nursery. Your apartment is perfect. 2 bedrooms, downtown, close to my office." "Congratulations." "Thanks. So, about the keys? No. Dad, come on, be reasonable. We're having a baby, your grandchild. Don't you want to help us? I've been helping you for 23 years. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm tired, Kyle. I'm tired of giving and never hearing thank you. I'm tired of being treated like an ATM machine. I'm tired of being slapped at your wedding and having you walk away like it didn't matter. She apologized. She didn't. You said she wanted to. That's different. He made a frustrated sound. You know what your problem is? You keep score. You can't just be generous without expecting something back. I expected respect. I expected my son to have my back when his wife assaulted me in public. Assaulted? Jesus, Dad, she slapped you. Stop being so dramatic. I hung up. The phone rang again immediately. I turned it off. I spent 3 days going through my records. Every check, every wire transfer, every loan. Sarah had been better at keeping track, but I'd kept enough. $643,000. That was the number. Plus, the house down payment I'd gifted them 3 years ago when they bought their first place. Another $80,000. $723,000. I'd also co-signed their mortgage. 2 years ago, when Kyle's business was struggling and the bank wanted more security, I'd put my own house up as collateral. My lawyer's name was Tom Fletcher. We'd gone to college together, stayed friends through the years. He handled Sarah's estate, helped me navigate the darkness after she died. I called him on Thursday. Dennis, good to hear from you. How are things? I need to know my options. We met at his office downtown. Glass walls, expensive furniture, coffee in china cups. Tom had done well for himself. Tell me what's going on, he said. I told him. The wedding, the slap, the apartment demands, the pregnancy announcement used as leverage, the 23 years of financial support. Tom listened without interrupting, making notes on a legal pad. First question, he said when I finished. What do you want? I want them to feel what I've been feeling. Which is? Used, discarded, worthless. He nodded slowly. Legally, the apartment is yours. They have no claim to it now. Good. The co-signed mortgage is more complicated. You can't just remove yourself without Kyle refinancing. Can I force a refinance? Not easily. Not without damaging your own credit if he defaults. What if he does default? Tom looked at me carefully. You're asking if you can make him default? I'm asking what happens if he does. The bank comes after both of you. Your house is collateral. You'd both be liable. I thought about that. What else? The gifts you gave him. Legally, they're gifts. You can't demand them back. Even if they were documented as loans. Were they? Some of them. Then those specific amounts might be recoverable in court, but it would be expensive, time-consuming, and would destroy your relationship with your son. That ship has sailed. Tom put down his pen. Dennis, I have to ask, is this really what you want? Because once you start down this path, there's no coming back. I thought about Sarah. What she would say. She'd always been the peacemaker, the one who smoothed things over. But Sarah wasn't here anymore. Sarah didn't see how Kyle had changed, how he'd become someone I didn't recognize. I want them to understand consequences, I said. I want them to learn that actions matter. All right. Let me look into the specifics. I'll need copies of all your financial records. I brought them. I handed him a thick envelope. He opened it, flipped through the pages, let out a low whistle. 700,000? Plus. And he thinks he doesn't owe you anything? He thinks I owed it to him, because I'm his father. Tom closed the envelope. Give me a week. I'll find you options. Kyle's business, TechFlow Solutions, had 3 major clients. I knew this because I'd helped him land 2 of them. Introductions, recommendations, golf games with my old contacts. The 3rd client had come through Isabella's father, Richard Torres, who owned a chain of luxury hotels. I called my contacts on Monday. "Dennis, it's been too long," said James Harrington, CEO of a regional bank chain. "How are you holding up?" "Getting by. Listen, James, I need to talk to you about TechFlow Solutions." "Kyle's company? Great work they do. The cloud transition went smoothly." "I'm glad to hear that. I'm calling because I need to step back from that recommendation." Silence. "Step back? How?" "I'm having some family issues. I won't go into details, but I can no longer vouch for the company's stability or ethics." "That's a serious thing to say." "I know. I'm not asking you to drop them. I'm just withdrawing my personal endorsement. Do with that information what you will." I made the same call to Robert Chen, who ran a manufacturing company. Same script, same careful language. I wasn't bad-mouthing Kyle's business. I was simply removing my support. By Wednesday, I got a panicked call from Kyle. I let it go to voicemail. "Dad, what the hell? Harrington's people called asking questions about contract renewals. Chen's assistant mentioned something about reviewing vendor relationships. What did you say to them? Call me back. This is serious." I deleted the message. Tom called on Thursday. "I've reviewed everything. You have several options, but they get progressively nuclear." "Tell me." Option 1. You can call the note on the loans you documented, force repayment within 60 days, or take legal action. How much did I document? About $200,000. The rest were informal transfers. Next option. You can demand to be removed from the mortgage cosign. Kyle would need to refinance within 90 days or face foreclosure proceedings. Can he refinance? Given his current debt-to-income ratio and the questions now circulating about his business stability? Unlikely. What about his house? If he can't refinance and defaults, the bank forecloses. With your house also on the line, you could potentially buy the debt and foreclose yourself. I leaned back in my chair. I could take his house? Technically, yes. It would be complicated and expensive, but possible. How long would it take? 6 to 8 months from the first missed payment. And option 3? Tom hesitated. Option 3 is scorched earth. You activate all these moves simultaneously. Call the notes, force the refinance, use your contacts to dry up his business revenue. He'd be facing financial ruin on multiple fronts. Would it work? Almost certainly. But Dennis, this is your son, your grandchild on the way. The grandchild I wasn't invited to meet at Christmas. Still. Do it. Option 3. All of it? Every piece. I want him to feel the walls closing in. Tom was quiet for a long moment. I'll draw up the papers. You'll need to sign everything before I can proceed. When? Tomorrow, if you can come in. I'll be there. That night, I sat in Sarah's old chair, looking at the photos on the mantel. Kyle at graduation, Kyle at his first job, Kyle on his wedding day, smiling at Isabella like she was the only person in the world. My phone buzzed. A text from Kyle. "Dad, please call me. I don't know what's happening, but we need to talk." I turned off the phone. The legal notice hit Kyle's mailbox on Monday morning. The thick envelope sat in my mailbox, its weight pressing against my fingers as I pulled it free. I recognized the seal immediately. It was the same mortgage company that had been hounding me for months. It was official now, the final notice. Demand for repayment of $214,000 in documented loans, payable within 60 days. The words jumped off the page, their meaning sinking into my chest like a cold stone. I stared at the letter for a long moment, feeling the weight of my own decision, yet knowing there was no other choice. This was the way it had to be. I couldn't be entangled in Kyle's mess anymore. He had dug his own hole, and I had no intention of letting him drag me down with him. The mortgage company had always been patient, understanding even, but their patience had worn thin. This was the moment they'd been waiting for, when they could claim what they were owed. I swallowed hard, trying to ignore the gnawing sensation of guilt in my gut. This wasn't personal, it was business, Strictly business. Tuesday arrived, and with it another letter. This time it was from my bank. Notice of intent to be removed as cosigner. It was the mortgage I had co-signed for Kyle and his wife, Amanda, years ago. The letter demanded a refinance within 90 days. This was the second blow in as many days. The reality of the situation began to settle in. I wasn't just pulling away from them emotionally. I was severing financial ties. Kyle and Amanda had been irresponsible with the mortgage, spending lavishly while ignoring the debts piling up. They had promised to handle things, promised to make it work, but promises, as always, were just words. Words were no substitute for action. And now, Kyle's reckless decisions were mine to deal with. It wasn't a surprise when I saw the figure of Kyle outside my front window on Wednesday. His posture was hunched, his face drawn in stress and exhaustion. He was walking up the driveway, his gait unsteady. I hadn't spoken to him since the last argument, but it was clear from the look on his face that he was carrying the weight of everything on his shoulders, and it was starting to crush him. Thursday afternoon, he rang the doorbell. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. I was sitting in my chair by the window, staring at the legal notices in front of me, and I didn't move right away. I could hear him on the porch, shifting his weight from one foot to the other, probably wondering if I was going to open the door. Finally, I stood and made my way to the door. I opened it slowly, meeting his gaze. "What are you doing?" he asked immediately, his voice raw, edged with frustration. "What the hell are you doing?" "Come in," I said flatly. "No. Tell me here. Tell me why you're destroying my life." I felt my chest tighten, my anger slowly bubbling up, but I kept my voice steady. "I'm not destroying anything. I'm simply reclaiming what's mine and removing myself from your financial situation." His face turned a deep shade of red. I could see his nostrils flare as he tried to suppress the wave of emotion. "Those loans were gifts," he shouted, his voice cracking with the stress of it all. "Not according to the paperwork we both signed," I responded, my tone cold, almost mechanical. His hands shook as they went to his hair, pulling at the strands in frustration. "That was a formality. You said it was just for tax purposes." "Did I? I don't recall that," I said, and for the first time I saw the panic in his eyes. He was losing control, and it was clear he had no real plan for what came next. His fists clenched at his sides, his knuckles white. "Dad, please. I can't pay you back $200,000 in 60 days. You know I can't." I folded my arms, leaning against the door frame, watching him. "Then you should have thought about that before letting your wife slap me and then asking for my apartment." The words stung as they left my mouth. I saw the color drain from his face. "Oh my God, we're still on that?" he muttered, his voice almost pleading. "She apologized." "No, Kyle, she didn't. You said she felt bad. That's not an apology." I could see him falter. His eyes darted to the ground, then back up at me, trying to find the right words. He knew he couldn't justify his wife's actions. His breath hitched as he ran his hand through his hair, exasperation growing in his voice. "Fine. I'm sorry. She's sorry. We're both sorry. Please don't do this." "Sorry for what specifically?" I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. "What?" He looked at me, confused. I leaned forward slightly, my voice firm. "What are you sorry for? Be specific." He stared at me, his mind racing, his lips trembling as he struggled to put together the right words. For the wedding thing," he began hesitantly. "The slap. Say it." He looked at me as if I'd asked him to perform some impossible task. He swallowed, his throat bobbing as he tried to speak. "For the slap. For asking about the apartment. For not calling after Mom died as much as I should have. For whatever you need me to be sorry for, just stop this." I could see the cracks in his facade. The hard exterior he had tried to maintain for so long was crumbling, and underneath was the broken, scared son who had no idea how to fix everything he had destroyed. I took a deep breath and let it out slowly. "Get off my property," I said, my voice firm. He froze, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water, trying to find words that would convince me to let him stay. But I wasn't going to give him that satisfaction. He had crossed the line, and I couldn't keep pretending things were fine. "Dad," he began, but I wasn't interested in hearing it. "Now," I interrupted, my voice quiet but final. He stood there for a long moment, staring at me, looking as if he was trying to calculate how far he could push before I would finally break. But I wasn't going to break. Not this time. Finally, he turned away, his shoulders slumped, his steps heavy as he walked back to his car. Before he got in, he called back over his shoulder, his voice trembling with emotion. "You're going to regret this. When your grandchild asks why they never met their grandfather, I'll tell them the truth. I'll tell them you're a cruel, vindictive old man who chose money over family." The door closed behind me before I could respond. I leaned back against it, the weight of his words hanging in the air. Would I regret this? Maybe. But I knew I couldn't let him keep walking all over me. This was the only way to make him understand. And if he couldn't, well, that was his problem. I couldn't carry him anymore. I could hear him in the driveway, the sound of his car door slamming, his tires screeching as he pulled away. I sat down on the couch, my heart heavy but resolute. It was done. There was no going back now. The next 3 weeks were a masterclass in pressure. Tom had been thorough. Every business contact I'd introduced Kyle to received a carefully worded email. Nothing actionable, nothing that could be called defamation. Just a professional note explaining that I was withdrawing my endorsement due to personal circumstances. Kyle's biggest contract, worth $800,000 annually, declined to renew. The others followed within days. Isabella's father called me directly. "Dennis, what's going on? Kyle says you're trying to ruin him." "I'm removing my financial support, that's all." "Over a misunderstanding at the wedding? That's petty." "It's not about the wedding, Richard. It's about 23 years of being taken for granted. He's your son. You're supposed to support him." "I did. I'm done. The baby is not my responsibility. It's Kyle's." Richard's voice got hard. "You're making a mistake. We take care of our own. If you come after my daughter and her family, you'll regret it." "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise." I hung up. 2 days later, someone keyed my car. Deep gouges along both sides, the word "selfish" carved into the hood. I filed a police report, installed security cameras, and didn't change course. Tom called with an update. "Kyle tried to refinance. 3 banks declined. His debt-to-income ratio is too high, and the business revenue drop triggered red flags." "What about the loan repayment?" "He asked for an extension." "Denied." "Dennis." "Denied, Tom." "All right. The next step is a formal lawsuit. Once I file, it becomes public record. Everyone will know." "Good." The lawsuit hit the court system on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, it was local news. Local businessman sued by father for unpaid loans. By Friday, the story had details. The amounts, the timeline, the co-signed mortgage. Kyle sent me an email. "You've won. Congratulations. You've destroyed me, humiliated me publicly, and guaranteed your grandchild will grow up knowing their grandfather is a monster. I hope it was worth it." I didn't respond. It happened fast. One day, Isabella was carrying on with her normal routine, the gentle curve of her belly growing each week, the excitement of impending parenthood filling the air. The next, the phone call came. Isabella had gone into early labor at 32 weeks. The doctor said it was stress-induced, that the pressure from everything happening in their lives had caused her body to react prematurely. I didn't get the call directly from Kyle. No, that would have been too simple. The news came through social media, of all things. A Facebook post from a friend of Isabella's. The image was stark. a tiny baby, frail and fragile, surrounded by tubes and wires. Emma, they named her. The photo was accompanied by a single line of text. "Our little girl is a fighter. She'll make it." But the words felt hollow. They didn't carry the weight of what I was seeing, didn't convey the sense of impending loss or the chaos that surrounded her birth. I scrolled down the post, my fingers hovering over the screen as I tried to digest the emotions swirling inside me. My grandchild was here, born early, fighting for her life, and all I could do was watch from a distance, from behind a screen. I wanted to go. I wanted to show up at the hospital, to be there for them, to hold my grandchild's tiny hand and make sure everything would be all right. But then, there was the larger part of me, the colder part, the part that had been born out of all the years of resentment and hurt, that told me to stay away, to keep my distance, to let them sort it out themselves. It wasn't just about me anymore. This wasn't my burden to carry. I stayed home, trapped in my own thoughts, watching as life moved forward without me. A few days later, Kyle sent me one more message, a photo attached. The image was a close-up of the tiny baby, Emma, in an incubator, her frail form barely visible under the medical wires and tubes. Isabella was sitting beside the incubator, tears streaming down her face, her hands pressed against the glass. There was a rawness in the photo, a sense of desperation. Kyle's message came with it, sharp and filled with blame. "This is what you did. This is on you." I stared at the message for a long time. The weight of his words settled over me like a dark cloud. I could feel the accusation in every syllable, the anger seeping through the screen. But the truth was, I had nothing left to give him. Nothing left to offer. I didn't reply. Instead, I hit the delete button, letting the message vanish into the ether. Maybe it was cold of me, but I was done. The following weeks passed in a blur of legal notices, phone calls, and increasingly hostile interactions with the bank. The mortgage payments had gone unpaid, and I was no longer just a co-signer. I was the primary source of the debt now, the one left holding the bag. By the time the third mortgage payment was missed, it was too late to save them. The acceleration clause was triggered. The full balance of the mortgage, the sum of their reckless decisions, became due immediately. I tried to ignore the gnawing feeling in the pit of my stomach, the anxiety that came with every phone call from the bank. But it was impossible. The weight of everything, the foreclosure, the broken relationship, the responsibility for a family that had rejected me at every turn, was too much to bear. Tom called. His voice, always calm and measured, sounded even more strained than usual. "The house will go to auction in 45 days, he said. I didn't respond immediately. The thought of Kyle losing everything, the house, his home, the life they had built, didn't feel like victory. It didn't feel like relief. It felt hollow. "Can I buy the note from the bank?" I asked after a long pause. Tom hesitated. "You want to foreclose on your own son?" "Can I?" I repeated, the question hanging between us like a sharp edge. Tom sighed, the sound heavy with concern. "Yes, it would cost about $400,000 to buy the debt and legal fees." "Do it," I said, my voice quieter than I intended, but I meant it. The decision had been made long before the words left my mouth. "Dennis, think about this. That baby," Tom began. I cut him off. "That baby has 2 parents and 2 sets of grandparents. They'll be fine." "Will they?" Tom's voice was uncertain, laced with doubt. I didn't answer him. What was there to say? I had made my choice, and now there was no going back. The purchase went through. It was done. 30 days later, I owned Kyle's mortgage. I had become the very thing I never wanted to be, the person who took away everything from my own son. But it was done, and there was no taking it back. 20 days after that, the sheriff's notice was posted on their door. Foreclosure proceedings had begun. Kyle's house, the home where his family had lived, was now officially on the brink of being taken away from him. I could almost feel the weight of that notice, the cold finality of it. Kyle showed up at my house again, but this time, there were no angry phone calls or desperate messages. This time, he didn't ring the doorbell. He didn't knock. He just stood in the driveway, staring at the house, his body hunched, his face gaunt and tired. I watched him from the upstairs window, the curtain drawn just enough for me to catch a glimpse of his silhouette. He stood there for what felt like an eternity, his eyes locked on the house as if it held the answers to all the questions he couldn't ask. He was a man broken, older than I remembered, the weight of everything crashing down on him all at once. I couldn't move. I couldn't bring myself to open the door. What was there to say anymore? The bridge had burned, and I couldn't fix it. I wasn't even sure I wanted to. He didn't stay long. After what seemed like hours, he turned, his shoulders slumping, and walked back to his car. He didn't look back as he got in, didn't glance toward the house one last time. He just drove away. And that was it. That was the last time I saw him. The whole thing felt unreal, like it was happening to someone else, someone far removed from me. But the truth was, it wasn't. It was my life, my choices, my consequences. And as Kyle's car disappeared from view, I felt nothing. No relief, no satisfaction, only the weight of the years I had spent trying to make sense of it all, trying to fix something that was beyond repair. The breaking point had come, and now all I could do was wait. The auction took place quietly, almost like a formality. The house was sold, stripped of its value in the eyes of the world, yet to me it felt like the last tangible thread between Kyle and I was being severed. The buyers were a young couple, fresh out of college, excited about their first home. They stood in the front yard, grinning from ear to ear, eager to begin their new life. I watched from across the street, standing behind the old oak tree that had watched over that house for years. They looked so innocent, so hopeful. As they stood there with the realtor who handed over the keys to the house that had once belonged to Kyle and his family, a wave of something passed over me. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't even relief. It was something far more distant, indifference. They weren't responsible for this. They didn't know the story of the house, of the mortgage, of the broken relationship. To them, it was just a house. To me, it was a symbol of failure, of choices made and unmade. The young couple walked through the front door with wide eyes, taking their first steps into a life they thought they could build in that place. But I couldn't look at it anymore. Not as the place where Kyle had grown up, not as the place where I had once sat at the dinner table with my family, laughing, talking, believing that everything would be okay. It had become nothing more than a commodity, an asset to be bought and sold in the cold world of finance and debt. Kyle and Isabella, now without a home of their own, moved into her father's guest house. Richard Torres, ever the businessman, made sure everyone knew it was only temporary, that they were regrouping and making plans. He had already offered to help them, but with that offer came the strings attached, the subtle reminder that they were under his roof, on his terms. It wasn't lost on me that Kyle and Isabella were back in the exact same place they had been when they first started out, relying on others for their survival. Only now, it was a different version of the same story, one that had already played out far too many times. They weren't independent anymore. They were forced to rely on their parents, their families, and the charity of others. As time passed, Kyle tried to reach out, though his calls were always brief, always strained. It was as if we were both trying to find something to say that wasn't wrapped in anger or regret. But nothing ever came of it. He was still angry, still blaming me for his downfall, still looking for someone to shoulder the weight of his mistakes. I never answered his calls. Eventually, the lawsuit that had been hanging over his head like an axe poised to drop was settled. Kyle couldn't pay the full amount, not by a long shot, but Tom had managed to negotiate a payment plan. $1,000 a month for 20 years. I would be 78 years old when the debt was paid off. The irony of it wasn't lost on me. I would likely be in my twilight years by the time I saw a penny of that money. But what did it matter? By then, the money would be irrelevant. It was the principle of the thing that had always mattered. The settlement had been another step in the slow, painful unraveling of my relationship with Kyle. The system had given him a way out, a chance to rebuild, but there was no fixing the rift between us. He could pay off his debts, live a quiet life, but there would always be that distance between us. The financial dealings were one thing, but the emotional ones, the ones that had nothing to do with money, were beyond repair. Then came the news that shook me in a way I hadn't expected. TechFlow Solutions, the company Kyle had worked for, declared bankruptcy. The news broke with little fanfare, just another casualty of the corporate world, another company swallowed up by its own mismanagement. I wasn't surprised, not really. Kyle had been one of the rising stars at the company, a key player in its operations. And yet, in the end, his contributions had been nothing more than a footnote in the company's failure. He found a new job quickly enough at a small software company. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't the high-paying position he had been accustomed to at TechFlow. It was middle management, a far cry from the lofty heights he once aspired to. And the salary? It was a fraction of what he had been making before. 40% of his previous salary, to be exact. The weight of the reality hit him hard, and I could hear it in his voice when we spoke briefly one afternoon. He didn't ask for sympathy. He didn't need to. He already knew what had happened, and that knowledge had settled over him like a shroud. But I could sense the humiliation, the realization that he would never return to the life he had once had. His ego had been shattered, and he didn't know how to rebuild it. Still, I didn't feel sorry for him. Not anymore. The sense of finality that had been building in me for so long only deepened. There would be no redemption for Kyle, no miraculous reconciliation. What we had once shared, the bond of father and son, had been shattered beyond repair. The pieces were too small, too jagged to put back together. I sold the downtown apartment shortly after TechFlow's bankruptcy made headlines. The place had been a financial anchor for years, and it had served its purpose. The market was good, and I managed to sell it for a price I was satisfied with. The proceeds from the sale went into a trust for Emma, Kyle's daughter, my grandchild. I thought long and hard about how to set it up. I could have left her a simple inheritance, an amount of money she could access when she came of age. But that didn't feel right. She would never see a penny of it until she turned 30, and only if she met specific educational and career milestones. I wanted her to understand the value of hard work, to learn that nothing came easy, not even the money that would one day be hers. She wasn't responsible for Kyle's mistakes, and I wasn't about to punish her for them. But I wasn't going to let her have the kind of life Kyle had come to expect, one where everything was handed to her on a silver platter. If Emma wanted to have access to that trust, she would have to earn it. As for Kyle, he would never see a cent of that money. He had forfeited his right to it the moment he made the choices he did. His life had been marked by one reckless decision after another, and I had no intention of rewarding that behavior. Emma, on the other hand, had a chance to break free from the patterns that had defined her father's life. In the end, I could only hope that she would be different. I could only hope that she would make the right choices, build a life based on something more than fleeting comfort and empty promises. As the years passed, I found myself thinking less and less about Kyle, about his failures, his anger, his inability to rise above it all. The distance between us grew, and with it, the pain dulled. What had once been a gaping wound slowly turned into a scar, a reminder of the past that had become too painful to relive. I had done what I could. I had made my choices, set my boundaries, and created a future for myself and for Emma. And though I would never forget the mistakes, the broken promises, I had learned to let go. The aftermath was always inevitable. and for the first time in a long while, I felt at peace with it. 6 months after the foreclosure, I received a letter. Handwritten, no return address. Dad, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect you to read this. But I need to write it anyway. You were right. About everything. I was entitled. I was ungrateful. I treated you like an obligation instead of a person. I let Bella treat you worse, and I didn't stand up for you when it mattered. Mom would be ashamed of me. I tell myself that the baby is what matters now, that I need to focus on being a better father than I was a son. But the truth is, I think about you every day. I think about how I threw away the only parent I had left because I wanted an apartment. An apartment. I'm not asking for anything. I know that bridge is burned. I just wanted you to know that I understand now. I understand what you were trying to teach me. Kyle. I read it 3 times. Then I put it in my desk drawer, next to Sarah's old reading glasses and Emma's birth announcement. I didn't respond. The house felt huge and quiet. Some days I walked from room to room, remembering. Sarah in the kitchen. Kyle as a boy running down the stairs. Birthday parties and Christmas mornings and ordinary Tuesday nights. All of it was gone. I could have backed off. At any point, I could have stopped. Could have forgiven. Could have helped. Could have been the bigger person. Sarah would have wanted me to. But Sarah didn't get slapped at a wedding. Sarah didn't hear her son call her controlling and possessive. Sarah didn't have to sit alone in an empty house wondering when her family had started seeing her as nothing more than a source of money. Tom came by on a Saturday afternoon with papers to sign. Estate updates. Nothing urgent. "How are you doing?" he asked. "Fine." "You look tired." "I am tired." He handed me the documents, watched me sign. Then he said, "Dennis, can I ask you something, as a friend?" "Go ahead." "Was it worth it?" I thought about that. About Kyle's broken expression in my driveway. About Isabella crying by the incubator. About Emma, who would grow up without knowing me. "Yes," I said. "Really?" He needed to learn. They all did. Actions have consequences. You don't get to treat people like garbage and expect them to keep supporting you. Even family? Especially family. Tom gathered his papers. "You know what the sad part is? You're not wrong. About any of it. Kyle was entitled. Isabella was out of line. They did take advantage of you, but you're the one sitting here alone. You won." "I know. Was that the goal?" I didn't answer. He left. People talk. Small city, large network. Everyone knew what happened, what I did, how far I went. The reactions split along predictable lines. Some people nodded, said Kyle had it coming, said they'd have done the same. Others looked at me like I was a monster, crossed the street to avoid conversation. I stopped going to the country club, stopped attending charity events. The whispers followed me everywhere. That's the man who foreclosed on his own son. That's the grandfather who's never met his grandchild. That's Dennis Carter. You know what he did. I became the story people told at dinner parties, a cautionary tale. What happens when you let pride override family? Nobody asked what happened to make me that way. Nobody wanted to hear about 23 years of being taken for granted, about being slapped at a wedding while people laughed. They just saw the ending. The villain who destroyed his family over money. Maybe they were right. A year passed, then another. Emma turned 3. I saw photos on social media when I was weak enough to look. Birthday parties, first days of preschool, Halloween costumes. Kyle had rebuilt. Slowly, painfully, but he'd done it. New job, better position. They'd moved out of Richard's guest house into a small rental. Nothing fancy, but it was theirs. Isabella posted sometimes about gratitude, about learning to appreciate what you have, about how struggle builds character. I wondered if she thought about the slap, if she remembered the look on my face, the sound it made, if she'd ever actually felt sorry, or if it was all just performative growth for social media. Kyle never posted about me, never mentioned having a father. In his online life, I didn't exist, which was fair. In his real life, I didn't exist either. Tom died of a heart attack at 62. I went to the funeral, sat in the back, left before anyone could talk to me. His wife, Margaret, caught me in the parking lot. "Dennis? Margaret, I'm so sorry. Thank you for coming." We stood there awkwardly. Then she said, "He worried about you, in the end. Said you'd won a battle but lost a war. He might have been right. Was it worth it?" Everyone kept asking me that, as if the answer would change. "I don't know anymore." She touched my arm. "Tom loved you like a brother. He would want me to tell you it's not too late. It's never too late." "For what?" "To stop being right and start being happy." She walked away, leaving me in the parking lot with my certainty and my loneliness. I saw Kyle at the grocery store on a Thursday afternoon. He was in produce, examining apples. Emma in the cart, singing to herself. I could have turned around. Should have. Instead, I walked closer. He sensed me before he saw me, looked up, froze. Emma stopped singing. "Daddy?" "It's okay, sweetie." He didn't look away from me. "Let's go." "Wait." The word came out rougher than I intended. Kyle's hand tightened on the cart handle. "What do you want?" I looked at Emma, 3 years old, Sarah's eyes, my nose. She looked at me with open curiosity, no fear, no understanding of who I was or what I'd done. "I just wanted to see her." "You gave that up." "I know." "You chose this." "I know." Emma reached for an apple. "Can I have one, Daddy?" "Sure, baby." He put it in the cart, still watching me. "We need to go." "Kyle." "Don't. Whatever you're about to say, don't." They left. I stood there holding a bag of oranges I didn't remember picking up, watching my son walk away with my granddaughter, and something inside me finally broke. That night, I wrote a letter. Not to Kyle, to Emma. "Dear Emma, you don't know me. You won't for a long time, maybe never. But I want you to know who I was before I became the man I am now. I was someone who believed in consequences, in teaching lessons, in making people understand that actions matter. I was right about all of it. Your father did take advantage of me. Your mother did disrespect me. They needed to learn that you can't treat people badly and expect them to keep supporting you. I was right. But being right cost me everything. It cost me my son. It cost me you. It cost me the chance to be the grandfather I wanted to be. So here's what I learned, and I hope you never have to learn it this way. Being right isn't the same as being happy. Winning isn't the same as peace. And sometimes the price of teaching a lesson is too high, even when the lesson needs to be taught. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect understanding. I just wanted you to know that I existed, that I loved your father, even when I was destroying him, that I love you, even though we've never met. That's all. That's everything. Your grandfather, Dennis. I sealed it, addressed it to her 18th birthday, and put it with my will. Years passed. I got older. The house got quieter. Emma turned 5, then 7, then 10. I watched from a distance, through carefully maintained social media accounts Kyle didn't know I had. Saw her grow up in fragments, first day of school, science fair projects, dance recitals. Kyle never mentioned me, not in posts, not in photos, not in the stories he told. I had been erased completely. Isabella's father died when Emma was 8. Heart attack, same as Tom. I sent flowers to the funeral. Anonymous. Wondered if they knew they were from me. The payment plan continued. $1,000 a month, every month, like clockwork. Kyle never missed one, never asked for a break, just paid, silent and steady, for 9 years and counting. It would have been easier if he'd missed payments. If he'd given me a reason to take further action, to justify the war I'd started. But he didn't. He just paid, quietly bearing the consequence of his mistakes while I sat in my empty house and wondered when consequence had become revenge. The diagnosis came on a Tuesday. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 6 months, maybe 8 if I was lucky. I wasn't scared. I was relieved. Finally, an ending. Finally, a conclusion to the story I'd been writing with my cruelty and my righteousness. I didn't tell anyone. No point. I had no one to tell. The lawyer who'd taken over Tom's practice helped me update my will. Everything to Emma, in trust, with conditions. She'd have to earn it, just like I'd earned everything in my life. Kyle would get nothing. Isabella would get nothing. Mr. Carter, the lawyer said carefully, you have time to make amends, if you want to. I don't. Why? Because he's your son. He stopped being my son when he stood by while his wife slapped me. The lawyer closed his briefcase. I hope you find peace. I found justice. That's close enough. But it wasn't. I knew it wasn't. The pain got bad in month 4. The doctors gave me stronger pills. I stayed home, watched the trees in the backyard lose their leaves. Kyle showed up on a Sunday afternoon. I watched him through the window. Older now, 42 years old, gray threading through his hair. He stood in the driveway for a long time before walking to the door. I let him ring twice before answering. Dad. Kyle. Can I come in? I stepped aside. He walked into the living room, looked around at the house he'd grown up in. Nothing had changed. Same furniture, same photos, frozen in time before everything broke. Margaret Fletcher called me, he said, from Tom's firm. She said you were sick. Margaret shouldn't have done that. How bad? Bad enough. He sat down without being invited. How long? Couple months, maybe. Jesus, Dad. Don't. Don't what? Don't pretend you care. Don't pretend the last decade didn't happen. Don't insult both of us. He looked at his hands. I do care. I never stopped caring. You had a funny way of showing it. You destroyed my life. You destroyed mine first. The words hung between us, true and terrible and too late. I was wrong, Kyle said finally. At the wedding, before, during, after. I was wrong about all of it. I took you for granted. I let Bella treat you badly. I expected your support without earning it. I was a bad son. Yes. But Dad, what you did was worse. Teaching you consequences? Destroying me, taking everything, foreclosing on my house while my daughter was in NICU. That wasn't teaching. That was vengeance. You needed to learn. I needed my father. I needed you to be the bigger person, to show me how adults handle conflict, to teach me by example instead of destruction. His voice broke. He put his face in his hands. I learned, Dad. I learned the lesson. I learned that nothing I ever do will be enough. That love is conditional. That family is a contract, not a bond. Is that what you wanted me to know? I sat down across from him. The pain was getting worse. I'd need another pill soon. You slapped me, I said quietly. Bella slapped you. You walked away. I was 28 years old and stupid. I didn't know what to do. I should have stood up for you. I know that now, but I didn't know it then. And you never gave me a chance to learn better. You just scorched the earth. You asked for my apartment. So what? So what if we were young and dumb and entitled? You're my father. You were supposed to teach me better, not destroy me for being imperfect. He was crying now. My son, who I'd foreclosed on, who I'd sued, who I'd broken systematically and completely, was crying in my living room. I'm sorry, I said. The words felt small and insufficient. I'm sorry, I said again. You're right, about all of it. I took it too far. I let anger turn into revenge. I became the villain instead of the father. Kyle looked up. Why? Because I was hurt. I had left, and when you pulled away, I didn't know how to handle it. So I taught you a lesson instead of talking to you. I showed you consequences instead of showing you love. You could have just talked to me. I know. We could have worked it out. I know. But instead you took 10 years from us. From me and you. From you and Emma. You took everything, Dad. For what? To prove a point? I didn't have an answer. Or I had too many answers. None of them good enough. We sat there in silence, the house settling around us, the afternoon light fading. I said finally, "Cancer. They say 2 months, give or take." "I know. Margaret told me. I'm leaving everything to Emma, in trust, with conditions." Kyle's face hardened. "Of course you are. She'll have to earn it. Education requirements, career milestones. Nothing comes free. Just like nothing came free for me." "That's right. You haven't changed at all." "I have. I just don't know how to show it." Kyle stood. "I should go." "Wait." He stopped at the door. "I want to meet her, Emma." "No." The word was flat, final. "Kyle, please. You gave up that right. You can't come back now at the end and pretend 10 years didn't happen. You can't teach her that people who love you will destroy you if you disappoint them." "I won't say anything. I just want to see her. Once." "The answer is no. You made your choices. Now you get to live with them." He left. The door closed quietly behind him. I sat in the empty house and felt the full weight of what I'd done. Hospice came, nurses with soft voices and gentle hands. They moved a hospital bed into the living room, gave me schedules for medication, asked if there was anyone they should call. "No," I said. "There's no one." They looked at me with pity. I hated it. The days blurred together, pain and pills and sleep. Sometimes I woke up thinking Sarah was still alive, that Kyle was still a boy, that I could go back and do everything differently. Kyle was 42 and gone. Margaret Fletcher visited once, brought flowers, sat beside the bed. "Kyle came to see you," she said. "Yes." "How did it go?" "About as well as expected." "Did you apologize?" "For all the good it did." She patted my hand. "It's not too late. You could try again." "He won't bring Emma." "Then you could write to her. Leave her something besides money." "I did. Years ago, a letter." "Write another one. Tell her the truth. All of it. Let her decide for herself what kind of man you were." After she left, I thought about that. A letter. The truth. All of it. What would I even say? "Dear Emma, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. You're 18 now, old enough to understand complicated things. Old enough to hear the truth about your grandfather. I was not a good man. Your father will tell you I was cruel. He'll be right. Your grandmother Torres, if she's still around, will tell you I was vindictive. She'll be right too. But I want you to know the whole story. Not to excuse what I did. Just so you understand how a man who loved his son ended up destroying him. It started at your father's wedding. Your mother slapped me in public. Your father walked away. That moment changed something in me. Made me realize I'd spent 23 years giving and getting nothing but taken for granted. So I decided to teach them a lesson about respect, about consequences, about gratitude. I called in loans, destroyed your father's business, foreclosed on his house while you were in NICU fighting for your life. I was right about everything, and I lost everything that mattered. Here's what I learned too late. Being right doesn't keep you warm at night. Being right doesn't give you family. Your father made mistakes. Real ones. He was entitled and ungrateful and thoughtless. But he was also young and learning. He deserved a father who would guide him, not destroy him. I could have talked to him, could have set boundaries without burning bridges, could have been disappointed without being destructive. Instead, I chose vengeance, disguised as justice. I chose my pride over my son. I chose being right over being your grandfather. The money in this trust is yours. You have to earn it. Education, career, character requirements. Your father will hate that. He'll say I'm controlling you from beyond the grave. He'll be right. But here's what I want you to know. The conditions aren't about control. They're about value, about understanding that things worth having are things worth working for, about not taking for granted the people who love you. Don't be like your father at 28, expecting the world to hand you everything. And for God's sake, don't be like me at 58, destroying the people you love because they disappointed you. Be better than both of us. I love you, Emma. I loved you before you were born. I loved you when you were in NICU. I loved you every day of your life, even though we never met. That love should have made me reach out, should have made me apologize, should have made me beg your father for forgiveness and a chance to know you. But pride is a hell of a thing. And by the time I understood what I'd lost, it was too late to get it back. Learn from my mistakes. Choose love over pride. Choose family over being right. Choose forgiveness over vengeance. I hope you have a beautiful life. I hope your father is the man I should have been. I hope you never have to learn these lessons the way I did. Your grandfather, Dennis Carter, P.S. There's a box in the trust office. Photos of your father as a boy. Videos of your grandmother. Stories I wrote down in the final weeks. Not much, but it's all I have to give you now. All I should have given you all along. I sealed the letter, gave it to the lawyer, made him promise Emma would get it on her 18th birthday, not before. Anything else? He asked. No, that's everything. The last week came faster than expected. The pain got bad enough that they increased the morphine. The world went soft and distant. I dreamed about Sarah. She was sitting beside the bed, looking at me the way she used to when I'd done something particularly stupid. You really made a mess of things, she said. I know. He needed you, Dennis. Not lessons, not consequences. You. I know. So what now? Now I die. And he gets to live without me. And Emma grows up never knowing her grandfather, and it's all my fault. Dream Sarah touched my face. It's not too late. It is. He won't come, I asked. Did you ask the right way? I woke up to the nurse checking my IV. The room was dark, middle of the night. What day is it? I asked. Tuesday, November 3rd. I need to make a phone call. Mr. Carter, it's 3 a.m. Please. There's a number in my phone. Kyle Carter. I need to call him. She looked at me for a long moment, then got my phone. It rang 4 times. I thought he wouldn't answer. Dad? His voice was rough with sleep. Kyle, I'm sorry to wake you. What's wrong? Are you okay? No, soon. Days, maybe. Silence. I'm not calling to ask you to come, I said. I'm calling to tell you I'm sorry. Really sorry. Sorry because I was wrong. About all of it. Dad, let me finish. Please. I don't have much time. I heard him take a breath. Okay. You were right. What you said when you came here. I should have been the bigger person. Should have talked to you instead of destroying you. Should have shown you how adults handle conflict instead of burning everything down. Yeah, I was hurt and angry, and I turned that into vengeance. I convinced myself I was teaching you a lesson, but really, I was just punishing you for not being perfect, for not being what I needed after your mom died. I should have been there more when Mom was sick. You were building a life. That's what kids are supposed to do. I just wanted you to need me still. And when you didn't, when you pulled away, I didn't know how to handle it. Kyle's voice cracked. You could have just told me that. I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Kyle. For everything. For the lawsuit, the foreclosure, the destroyed business. For missing Emma's whole childhood. For choosing pride over love. For all of it. He was crying now. I could hear it. I forgive you, he said finally. I don't know if I should. I don't know if it makes me weak or stupid, but I forgive you. You're stronger than I ever was. I want to bring Emma. Tomorrow. If you're up for it. My heart seized. Really? She should meet you. She should know her grandfather, even if it's just once. Even if it's at the end. Thank you. But Dad, if you say one word about earning things or consequences or teaching her lessons, I swear to God, I won't. I promise. I just want to meet her, that's all. Okay, we'll come tomorrow, around noon. Kyle? Yeah? I love you. I should have said it more, should have shown it better. But I do. I always have. I love you too, Dad. I handed the phone back to the nurse. Good news? She asked. The best news. They came at noon, just like Kyle promised. I was awake, sitting up in the hospital bed, wearing a clean shirt the nurse had helped me put on. Emma was 13 now, tall, serious eyes, cautious. She stood close to Kyle, holding his hand. Hi, I said. My voice was weak, but steady. Hi. She looked at me carefully. You're my grandfather. I am. You look sick. I am. Very sick. She came closer, examining me like I was a puzzle to solve. Dad says you used to be mean, but that you're sorry now. That's true. I was very mean to your father. I'm very sorry about it. Why were you mean? Kyle started to intervene, but I shook my head. Because I was hurt, I told her honestly. And instead of talking about being hurt, I hurt other people. That was wrong. Dad says hurting people because you're hurt just makes more hurt. Your dad is right. I wish I'd understood that sooner. She nodded, processing this. Then she said, Can I sit with you? I'd like that very much. Kyle helped her into the chair beside the bed. She was quiet for a moment, then said, What was my dad like when he was little? So I told her. About Kyle learning to ride a bike, crashing into the mailbox 3 times before getting it right. About the time he tried to give the dog a haircut, and we had to take it to the groomer to fix the damage. About Christmas mornings and report cards, and the year he built a tree house that was more like a tree platform, but he was so proud of it. Emma laughed, real laughs, the kind that made her eyes crinkle just like Sarah's used to. Kyle sat on the other side of the bed, listening. Sometimes he'd add details I'd forgotten. Sometimes he'd correct me when I got the story wrong. But mostly, he just watched his daughter get to know her grandfather. We talked for 2 hours, about Sarah, about the house, about family history. I showed Emma photos from the albums beside the bed, told her about her great-grandparents, about where she came from. When it was time to go, Emma hugged me carefully, like I might break. Will you come back? I asked. She looked at Kyle. He nodded. Tomorrow, she said, if you want. I want. They came back the next day, and the day after that. 5 days in a row, Emma and Kyle, sitting beside my bed, filling the empty house with voices and life. On the 6th day, I was too weak to talk much. Just listened to Emma tell me about school, about her friends, about a boy she thought was cute but annoying. Normal things, beautiful things. Kyle held my hand. Dad, we should probably talk about arrangements, for after. It's all handled. The lawyer has everything. The money, for Emma. You don't have to put conditions on it. Yes, I do. Dad, not to control her, not to teach lessons, to protect her, so she understands value, so she doesn't take things for granted the way you did, the way I did, so she's better than both of us. Emma looked up from her phone. I'll earn it, whatever the conditions are. I promise. I know you will. She went back to her phone. Kyle squeezed my hand. Thank you, he said quietly. For this, for letting me bring her, for apologizing. Thank you for coming, for forgiving me. I didn't deserve it. Yeah, you did. You're my dad. That night, alone with the nurse, I felt something close to peace. Not happiness, not redemption, just the quiet knowledge that I'd gotten one thing right at the end. I'd said I was sorry. I'd meant it. And my son had forgiven me. It wasn't enough to erase 10 years of destruction. Wasn't enough to give me back the time I'd lost. But it was something. It was enough. Bersaus do epilogue, The last words. I died on a Thursday morning. Kyle was there, sitting beside the bed. Emma was at school. They'd said goodbye the night before, both of them knowing it was the last time. "Dad," Kyle said, holding my hand, "can you hear me?" I managed a small nod. "I'm going to take care of Emma. I'm going to teach her about you. The real you. Not just the angry man who destroyed me, but the father who taught me to ride a bike, who sat with Mom during chemo, who loved us even when he didn't know how to show it." I squeezed his hand. "And I'm going to teach her the lessons you tried to teach me, about value and work and gratitude. But I'm going to do it with love instead of vengeance, with guidance instead of destruction, the way you should have done it." Another squeeze. "I love you, Dad. I forgive you. Rest now." The room got soft around the edges. Sarah was there, I was sure of it, smiling at me, shaking her head at what a mess I'd made. But I'd fixed it. Not completely. Not enough. But a little. That would have to do. My last thought was of Emma laughing at a story about her father crashing into the mailbox, of Kyle's hand in mine, warm and forgiving, of a family that I'd broken and barely begun to mend. I'd won my war, destroyed my enemies, taught my lessons, and I'd lost everything that mattered. But in the end, for just a few days, I'd gotten back what I needed most: my son's forgiveness, my granddaughter's laugh, a glimpse of the man I should have been all along. It wasn't redemption, but it was enough.